So, hey, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to meet with us and learn about building a truly passive business on the Turo platform. So let me give you the lay of the land. We're going to go ahead and jump right into this because we got a lot of stuff to get through, and I really want to only keep you here for about an hour tops. So let me give you the lay of the land of how this evening's going to go. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to, first of all, welcome you. And then we're going to dive into a slide deck that I'm going to walk through just to cover some basic information about building a passive Turo business through co-hosting. We're going to talk about what it is. We're going to talk about some of the things to be aware of, some of the things to look for. And then I have two gentlemen who I'm going to introduce to you after I finish talking. One gentleman is my friend Colton, who's going to be speaking with you about fleet management. And we also have my friend Mike in the room, who is going to bring it home tonight with a conversation about how to the best practices for acquiring vehicles. Super tricky thing to do these days with the market the way it is. And if we're going to talk about co-hosting I'm sorry, my dog's going nuts and I don't know why. If we're going to talk about placing vehicles in markets around the country to build a passive Turo income stream, then we absolutely need to make sure that we're getting the right vehicles at the right deal in the right way for those markets, or nobody's going to make any money and y'all are going to be mad at me. So that's how we're going to round it out tonight. So without any further ado, I see a few other people have dropped in here. Welcome. Happy you're here. Without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into this little slide deck that I have. So let me get switched over here to screen share. All right, you all should be able to see my screen now. So this is the this image that you're looking at here is the passive income ecosystem. This is something that we built. And before we dive into this, I'm going to ask everybody to mute your mics, please, to make sure that we don't have any distracting noises as we go through this. So give you a little bit of history. Back in September, we created the passive income ecosystem. I created it with some business partners around the country to do just what we're talking about here tonight, give you a means through which to build a Turo business without the work. We have acquisition partners, we have shipping partners, we have fleet management partners, and that's what we're going to be diving into tonight. So let's talk about passive income on the Turo platform. And we're going to begin by saying Turo is not a passive business. Well, then why the hell are we talking about passive income on the Turo platform? Well, let's get into that. But the first thing that we've got to make sure that everybody understands. Now, I know that you folks who already have vehicles on the ground, you're managing those vehicles. I know that you know this. Turo is not passive. So who I'm speaking to here is the people who maybe don't have vehicles. Maybe you're just exploring this Turo thing and trying to figure out if it's the right thing for you. And if you have been following any kind of social media influencers, TikTokers, Instagram people, YouTube people who are telling you that you can get rich quick with a passive income stream by putting your vehicles on Turo, my friends, let me relieve you of that delusion right now, because Turo is not a passive business. Now, there are two sets of things that I want to talk to you about on this slide. First of all, is I want to talk with you about everything that has to happen with every single trip that a person takes with your Turo vehicle. And then we're going to talk about some things that may or may not happen that you're going to have to deal with. So we'll start off just by pointing out that every trip begins with a clean vehicle, right? So before your guest ever shows up to pick up that vehicle, you got to make sure that darn thing is clean. Washed, vacuumed, wiped out on the inside. It needs to look exactly the same way as a vehicle that you would get from Enterprise or Hertz or some of the big name rental car companies. Somebody's got to clean the vehicle. And if you don't have staff, guess who's going to be doing it? Another thing that has to happen with every trip is making sure that it is road ready. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you got to make sure that you have at least 30 seconds of tread depth on every tire on that vehicle. You have to make sure that when your windshield wipers go back and forth, they're actually cleaning the windshield. You have to make sure that there are no lights burn out anywhere on the vehicle. You have to make sure there's no check engine lights showing on the dashboard or no tire pressure lights. Again, this vehicle, before it goes out on that guest, has to be pristine, both in cleanliness and in mechanical soundness and in safe driving condition. Now, you also have to take pre-trip pics. If you are on Turo, that means you're on a protection plan. And that protection plan is going to pay for the repairs of your vehicle when it gets damaged. And for that to happen, you have to have a set of pre-trip pictures taken within 24 hours of the beginning of that trip. And what I tell people whenever we're talking about pre-trip photos is you need to have a picture of every part of that doggone vehicle that you want covered in the event that it gets damaged or even stolen. Yes, stolen. I've had batteries swapped out from the engine cabin on some of my vehicles. So what do? Take a little marker, mark that battery, take a pre-trip picture of it. Now, I take about 75 or 85 pictures of every vehicle before that thing goes out. So this is another thing. Somebody's got to do it. And if you don't have staff, it's going to be you. Checking in the guest. Hey, it's time for that trip to begin. That guest is about to show up for the vehicle. You've got to make sure that you go through all of the TOS check-in procedures to make sure that your protection plan is in place, checking their driver's license, checking their selfie, unless it's a Turo Go trip, which is a whole different conversation. There's less to do there. We're not talking about Turo Go tonight. But if you're not on a Turo Go trip, you have to check in that guest, and that is a very active part of hosting. And then finally, checking the vehicle back in. That vehicle returns from the trip. You got to inspect it. You got to make sure it's okay. You've got to walk through that process of checking the vehicle back in. Now, these are the things that are non-negotiable. They happen with every single trip. You got to do them. Now, there's some things in this business that you may or may not have to do. I hope you don't have to do some of these. But if you're a host on the platform long enough, you will have to do these. So let's talk about those. First of all, filing claims. If you're a Turo host for any length of time, you're going to have a damage claim that you're going to have to deal with. And there is a process that you go through of filing that claim with Turo to make sure that your protection plan pays for the damages. Secondly, submitting incidentals. What do I mean by incidentals? Well, smoking violations, cleaning issues that fall within the scope of qualifying for a cleaning fee, missing fuel, mileage overages, things like that. When that vehicle comes back, you might be due some more money, and you've got to walk through the process of submitting those incidentals. Repossessions. These are always fun. This is when your guest does not bring the vehicle back whenever they're supposed to. I just was noticing on Facebook a few minutes ago, my friend Scott down in Texas has an issue with his vehicle, and he's about ready to go grab that darn thing. I have repossessed probably about 8 times, 7 or 8 times. I've had to go down into inner city Detroit and repossess my vehicles, and ain't nothing at all passive about that. What about impound recovery? Yeah, about half a dozen times I've had to go to impound yards, get my vehicle out of impound. One of them took me 4 to 5 hours to navigate that process because there was some criminal activity involved. I had to go to different places, pay fines, all this fun stuff. Certainly not passive. Maintenance. Somebody's got to do those oil changes. Somebody's got to switch out those windshield wipers and change the blinker fluid. And whenever you have the change of season, you've got to take the winter air out of your tires and replace it with summer air. All those fun things. That's not a real thing, in case anybody's wondering. So, but anyway, maintenance, you get it. Somebody's got to do the maintenance on that vehicle. Repairs. Your vehicle gets damaged in an accident. You're going to be working with that body shop. You're going to be making sure those supplements are filed. You're going to be communicating with your claim rep at Turo. So everything that you see on the screen here is what's involved in managing a vehicle on Turo. I'm sure I probably left something out here, but I'm driving the point home that Turo is not a passive business. There is only one way for Turo to be passive, and that is for you to give your vehicle to someone else to manage for you. That's it. That's the only way to earn passive income on Turo. Or, well, I started to say, or you could hire people to do the work for you, but then you got to supervise the people. So it's still not passive. Now you're just dealing with human resources issues instead of cleaning cars. So the only way for this to be passive is to give your vehicle to someone else to manage for you. Now, here's the scary part. Here's the thing about giving your vehicle to someone else to manage for you. And it is this. Unfortunately, the Turo host community is full of people like this. Scam artists, failed Turo hosts, people out there who can't afford their own vehicles, so they beg other people to send vehicles to them. And I got to tell you, folks, I have been coaching people in this Turo business since the summer of 2021, and I have lost track of the number of people that I have talked to have given their cars to someone, some stranger from Facebook. They've just sent their 20, 30, 40, 50, $60,000 vehicle to some stranger from Facebook who's probably looking like this behind his computer, and they don't get paid. They never receive a payment, or the vehicle develops a maintenance issue and it sits on the back lot for 6 months because this fella doesn't have time or doesn't care to go get it fixed and get it back out on the road. Giving your vehicles to someone else is incredibly risky, folks. It really is. So how do you avoid dealing with this guy that you're looking at here on the screen? And I'm not talking about the guy in the red shirt scratching his forehead. I'm talking about the guy in the gray hoodie behind the computer here. How do you avoid dealing with someone like this? Well, if you're thinking about giving your vehicle to someone else to manage for you, there's a whole set of questions that you need to be asking that person. Please don't just click on some guy's post in a Facebook group, ask him his address, and ship your vehicle down there to it without asking these questions. Question number one, how long have you been a host? I'm amazed at the number of people that I see posting in our Facebook group saying, hey, I'm ready to add more vehicles, and they've been a host for 2 months. Or how many trips have you completed? That person on the platform who's been there for 2 months and they got 6 trips, or maybe 15 trips, or maybe 25 or 30 trips. And now they're asking people to send hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of vehicles to them to manage when they haven't even been through a fraction of the crap that they're going to go through as a Turo host. So question number 2, how many trips have you completed? Question number 3, are you an all-star host? Now, there's a lot of conversation on the platform about being an all-star host. What is it? What benefit does it give you? But I got to tell you, there is no way this side of hell that I would ever send my vehicle to someone to manage who is not an all-star host. Because if they're not an all-star host, that means their metrics aren't very good. It means they're turning down trips. It means they're canceling trips. It means they're getting bad reviews and ratings. You don't want to send your vehicle to that kind of person. The all-star hosts on the Turo platform are the cream of the crop. These are the people who have the metrics and the ratings and the reviews to back up their expertise and say, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm winning at this game. Okay. Are you an all-star host? The next question, what is your star rating? 5.0, 4.9. I sure as heck wouldn't give my vehicle to anybody with a star rating below 4.9. Okay, that should be your minimum standard. How many vehicles in your fleet do you personally own? Now, this is an important question that you may not have thought of before. Now, there are some fleet management companies out there who they build their business model on managing vehicles for other people. But if you've got just the sole operator out there on the Facebook group and he's asking for people to send him or her vehicles, this is a very important question, because if they say, well, I don't own any of the vehicles in my fleet, or I just own 1 or 2 of the 15 that I have, there's a very good chance that this person has bad credit. They're broke. They have financial issues. They cannot buy vehicles of their own for whatever reason. And the only way they can build a business, since they can't buy their own vehicles, is by getting other people to send their vehicles to them. So what happens when this person who can't buy their own vehicle, and they're managing vehicles for other, all of a sudden the AC unit goes out on their house and they have to drop 10 grand on a new AC unit? What do you think the chances are that they're going to dip into your funds a little bit and you might not get paid? Okay. Very important question. How many vehicles in your fleet do you personally own? Next question, do you have experience with managing vehicles for others? Now, everybody starts from zero. I started co-hosting vehicles in August of 2018, and my very first vehicle was my very first vehicle. So everybody does start from somewhere, and it's not a deal breaker if someone says, you know what, I've never managed vehicles for others before, but I am one hell of a good host, and I got all the other criteria to back it up. I'm ready to take on my first one and show you what an amazing job I can do, and begin building my cred in the community. But it is an important question to ask. The next question, are you willing to provide references and be vetted? My goodness, there was one time about 6 months or so ago, a gentleman dropped a post in our Facebook group and said, hey, I'm co-hosting. Everybody send me your vehicles. And somebody made a comment, said, hey, can we see the link to your profile? And the gentleman said, no, I stopped allowing people to vet me a long time ago. sorry, you're not getting my vehicle. So are you willing to provide references and be vetted? If you aren't, there's something sneaky going on there. All right. What's the average monthly earnings for vehicles you manage? Another important question. And, this whole thing is a financial game. And then one thing that I need everybody on this webinar to understand is when you go into a Turo or into a co-hosting relationship, you do have to understand that the profit margins are thin on both sides because we have two parties splitting the profit margins. So a good co-host is going to only accept vehicles that make sense financially for the vehicle owner. And they're only going to accept vehicles that they know are going to perform well in their market. They're going to earn the earnings that are going to make the vehicle owner happy and the fleet manager happy. So again, a very important question. What's the average monthly earnings? All right. Now, that's a lot of questions to ask. Here's some good news. I've already asked all those questions for you. I asked those questions several months ago from this gentleman in the red shirt that was scratching his forehead a minute ago. His name is Colton, and he is here with Aura. And this is the fleet management company that we partnered with right out of the gate with the passive income ecosystem. And I want you to take notice of that quote over on the right-hand side. The very first thing that I did whenever Colton and I began talking is I reached out to my connections at Turo, and I have quite a few that I've had for quite a few years, and people there are very honest with me whenever I ask them questions. I said, hey, tell me about this company called Aura. Tell me all about them. And this is the quote I got back. Aura has a powerful business model. They're scaling very impressively, and they're handling the scaling of vehicles well from a management perspective. So that was a pretty good recommendation for me. Now, I want to introduce you to Aura, but before we do, we're going to take a little look at this quick video.
So, let's say you have a car and you want to make money off your car, but you want to do it passively. Let me introduce you to Guided by Aura, the new passive way to make money with your car. To get started, sign up for Aura Plus online. You'll meet with one of our awesome account executives, and they'll talk you through all the options available to your cars. If you're interested in growing an entire fleet of cars, we can help with that too. Once you've decided Aura Plus is right for you, we'll help you through a few administrative steps to officially onboard your cars to our fleet. All that's left is for Aura to pick up your car. That means Aura Plus will handle washing, cleaning, moving, storing, and maintaining the vehicles for optimal rental conditions. Best of all, Aura Plus handles 100% of the customer service, allowing you to focus on living your best life. Once we receive your vehicle, your hard work's over. Aura Plus will then handle all of your vehicle's rental reservations, all while you collect monthly payments directly deposited into your bank account. As an Aura Plus member, you'll receive live reporting through your member dashboard and a dedicated account executive, and whatever other questions pop up along the way. Get started earning right away, and let Aura guide the way.
All right. So who did we create this passive income ecosystem for? We're going to talk with Colton here in a few minutes, but I want you to understand why we did this back in September. And I'm going to talk you through a few different types of people that we created the passive income ecosystem for. The first one is the current host who has a vehicle that does not perform well in their market. Maybe they just didn't do their research. They bought a luxury vehicle in a market that really only has demand for economy daily drivers, or it could be any number of things, but the vehicle is just not getting booked the way they wanted it to get booked. It's not generating the kind of revenue that they need it to generate. And that vehicle would most likely do much better in another market. So we just load it up on a truck and ship it out there and make everybody happy. Another group of people that we created this for are current hosts who have a vehicle that would perform well right there in their market, but they don't have the time to manage it well themselves. We just, a good friend of mine down in Orlando has just had some conversations with Aura, and I think he's moving forward. He just lives too far outside of the city to make his vehicle available at the airport, and airport delivery is pretty darn important in Orlando. So that's a situation where we have a guy who is a host. He has the vehicles, but he knows they will get better utilization and earnings if he just hands them over to a fleet management company that can better position them there in his market. Now, the third group of people that we created this for are current hosts who already dominate their markets. There's some of you may be on this call right here. There's folks in markets all around the country that I'm friends with that I know very well who've already built fleets of 20, 30, 40, 50 vehicles in their markets, and they're kicking ass and they're doing an amazing job. And now they're thinking to themselves, gosh, what could I do if I could branch out to another city or two or three or five? And then they think to themselves, well, that all sounds good, but who's going to do the work? Well, that's who we created this for, the person who's ready to branch out to those other markets, and they need a team on the ground to make it happen. Another group is vehicle owners who have no interest in hosting themselves, but they want the passive income. This is just the person who's maybe got an extra vehicle that they don't drive all that much, or they've got access to a vehicle or two, or they're willing to go out and buy a vehicle or two just to have for themselves a passive income stream. We also created this for them. And then finally, investors. And this is, we've gotten a lot of traction with some investors around the country who have very deep pockets. They're usually business owners who've sold a business for $1 million or $2 or $3, and they've got a tax issue now, and they need to find some tax deductions. So these investors, they go out, they buy a bunch of vehicles, they take the tax benefit, and now they have an additional revenue stream. These are the people that we've created the passive income ecosystem for. Now, so what we're doing, and Colton and I had a call earlier this week, and I think we've got about 100 vehicles so far that have been moving in and out of different markets that we've a lot of them, about half of them are already on the ground. The other half are in the pipeline, ready to be launched and start making some money. So we are moving a lot of vehicles in and out of different cities. Sometimes people will come across the passive income ecosystem and they'll send me a message. I got blasted by one a few days ago, and they'll say, "What the hell are you doing trying to send more vehicles to my market? Don't you know that we're saturated here and I can't get my BMW M4 rented out for more than $40 a day? What are you doing?" Well, they just don't understand what we're really up to here. And I thought it would be helpful to write what I call the equilibrium commitment. Now, this is my personal commitment to the host community as the person leading this passive income ecosystem. My commitment is this, and my approach and my mindset has always been this, and it is this, but I just finally got around to putting it down in writing. So our equilibrium commitment is this: using the extensive market research of the Car Share Academy and feedback from the host community, we are committed to providing guidance to our fleet management partners to avoid contributing to saturation issues in current and future markets. Guys, it makes no sense for us to send vehicles into markets that already have too many damn vehicles for the market. Nobody's going to make any money. It's just going to hurt everybody. Okay. So that's not what we're about. Our goal is to create mutual wins for all hosts and vehicle owners in all markets. We work to move vehicles out of oversaturated markets to other cities where more vehicles are needed and where they'll perform better. So if you were to approach me and say, "Bill, I'm interested in this whole passive income ecosystem thing. I'm down here in I'm thinking about Fort Lauderdale or Miami. What do you think? Can we bring some vehicles to Fort Lauderdale or Miami?" And my answer is going to be no, I don't think so. But why don't we do this? Why don't we ship some vehicles out of Miami and Fort Lauderdale and send them to another city that really needs those vehicles? Okay. So when I have conversations with a host down in Miami, at least, and I don't want to speak for our fleet management partners, but my conversation always goes something like that. You know what, Ben, you got 6 cars sitting down here in Miami that are getting 40% utilization. The rates are $20 a day lower than where they are in other markets. Why don't we ship those 6 vehicles out here to one of these other cities, make you more money, and help ease the burden in Miami and Fort Lauderdale and ease the saturation issues? And then there are other markets where we do need more vehicles. We want to build more vehicles because if we have more vehicles, we can accommodate more guests, take more people away from Enterprise, Hertz, and Avis, and help build the Turo brand in these markets and raise the water level for everybody. So in all markets, we work to build Turo brand awareness and capture market share away from the traditional rental car companies, improving business for all hosts everywhere. Okay. So I say this to put everybody's mind at ease that we are not trying to find ways to dump another 100, 200, 300, 400 vehicles in markets that are already saturated. That is my commitment to the host community. All right. I have talked long enough. It's time for me to introduce you to Mr. Colton Anderson from Aura. And what I've asked Colton to do is just share with you some thoughts about Aura, just talk a little bit about the company, what they do, what the opportunities are. And my friend, the floor is yours.
Well, Bill, thanks for the introduction. It's good to meet a lot of you. It's funny, I'm on the Facebook forums quite a bit, and I scroll through them kind of consistently, and I see a lot of familiar names here. Mike Rumpel, finally good to, put a face to it. I see you all over it. So it's good to meet a lot of you guys. And what I want to do is everybody at this point could essentially unmute themselves. And my goal here is to give you somewhat of a presentation of Aura, how we stand as a company, what we do, it's a little bit different, and then address some of the things that, Bill said in terms of saturation. Well, maybe your Audi in Miami would do good, but you don't have the ability to do instant bookings. I don't know if you guys know this, but instant bookings, Miami makes up for about 72%. It's a big travel destination. A lot of people try to go there. They're not very, very well planned. So all of a sudden the Audi would get booked. Your Audi just might possibly not, simply because, of course, you don't have those instant bookings, right? So that's where one of the advantages of Aura comes in. We can take your car in your marketplace, or just in general, like Bill said. I'll show you guys examples here. I got a bunch of Corvettes. Everybody knows the new body style. I'm sure you see them. Very, very popular. San Francisco, there's a decent amount of saturation there. Your average price point's going for about $150 out there, right? In Austin, Texas, right now at South by Southwest, I'll show you an example. You could almost hit 225, 240. And over the course of a 30-day time frame, that extra $90 can add up pretty significant for you, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll steal the screen, although it says Bill, it says I can't participate in screen sharing. If you could give me some.
Yeah, let me figure out how to do that. All right, see if you can do it now, Colton.
Okay. It looks like it. Let's try it. Okay, can everybody see what I'm seeing here? It shows our Aura Plus page, right?
No, I'm still seeing my screen.
Still seeing your screen.
See, maybe I need to do stop share. Okay, there we go. We got you.
Can everybody see me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, rock and roll. So what I'm going to do is, for just purposes of this presentation, I'm just going to assume most of you guys are on Turo. And if you're not on Turo, it's a very, very new space, right? I think everybody knows it's kind of the wild west of the rental car industry in general. And the way it works is very much so like eBay, and you have to build your reputation, kind of like Bill said. So out of about 8,000 trips you can see here in the last, give or take, 18 months, our reputation stands pretty heavily, right? We had an average of 4.9. Now that's out of 5 stars. You can't please everybody. As you guys know, kind of like what Bill said, your car could be running completely fine through the car wash, ready to drop it off. And all of a sudden, right when the renter grabs it, an oil change or check engine light comes on, and it just gives, those renters the willies. Maybe they have children, do you offer a car seat? And there's little things like that, that from growth hurdles, for perspective, you can run into, of course. And we started about 18 months ago, realistically 2 years. I myself, my background's in home and auto insurance. So I was an insurance broker, and I had 5, 6 different cars that I was hosting on Turo. And we started with the Teslas. And back in the day in Dallas, where we're from, I mean, this is a quick 18 months ago, you could get 175 on a good weekend. Of course, saturation hit us like everybody else, and it turned into a scenario where we slowly started to expand into different cars. And so me, my CEO, and my brother all kind of got together with the 30 cars we had, and we Googled Turo management. We kind of got over the day-to-day operations. I mean, it's tough, guys. So anybody out there that has 20 cars, 30 cars right now, kudos to you, because I know the struggle. I know the challenges. It can be very, very hard. And we were shorthanded. We didn't really find anything. There wasn't anybody out there, kind of like what Bill said. There was a couple people on Facebook posts, yeah, I'll take your cars. And my experience is zilch, or maybe I have 2 cars. And so we quickly realized maybe we can enter the marketplace with, a capital injection and really try and create a process that is replicable over a couple hundred cars. So over 18 months, we've hit about 575 live cars. Some cars go down, some cars go up, and you'll see these are all of our marketplaces here, right? So all the way on the West Coast, and we plan on opening up Seattle. I actually have a flight tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. where I'll be meeting Bill, and we're going to go over the discussion in Atlanta, kind of do something similar to this for all the Atlanta hosts out there. And then we have pending an exclusive partnership with Park and Fly in Atlanta. Well, we're going to go in and be able to try to be one of the first hosts to really enter the Atlanta airport. But with that comes capital, and we're trying to replicate that on a national scale. We're not there yet. So hopefully if you guys are in Atlanta, or some of you that are listening to this are in Atlanta, who knows? Maybe I'll shake your hand and we'll develop a partnership for parking. Because as you guys know, parking is a massive hurdle for hosts. So scrolling down here, your average, you got thousands of reviews. Again, can't please everybody. Looks like the convertible top on this car right here in lifetime just so happened to not work. So now we got to move that over to repair ticket, and I'll get into all of that. But again, I'm showing you guys this to show you, while we're growing tremendously fast, and according to Turo, we are the largest co-host, not the largest host. Eric Quam still holds that crown out there in Los Angeles. We're doing our best as we scale, and for the most part, minus you'll see some of this right here. I don't know if you heard, but we had quite the storm that just ran through about an hour and a half ago. My power was out in Dallas, so sometimes we get those cancellations due to weather, like you guys have all probably experienced, right? But if you go through, how do we do it? With hundreds of cars and scaling, it does become a nightmare. So how do we keep all of our cars at the top of the list, right? Well, one, it's going to be the pictures. You got to have your 16 pictures on it. It's going to be reviews. But the 2 most important things that we found based on data, right, is going to be your response rate and your response time. Okay. Now, how many of you guys are familiar with CarSync? I feel like most people are, but how they actually utilize it. Is there anybody that doesn't know what CarSync is? No? Good? Okay, excellent. So this is how we set up our CarSync, and this is pretty cool to see, because if we scroll down here, you'll see we have cars in Orlando. Okay, we have cars in Austin. And if I were to scroll down all the time, as you guys know, every little blue line can be a block out or a private booking. We do encourage our investors to go on to Lula if their car's under $75,000 in value, simply because you can eventually rent private. And the way our commission structures work, we have 2 plans. You can make 65% of the rental daily rate, or 70, and going on that private route helps encourage us working our way to eventually getting you guys 75% of the overall rental, right? So if I keep scrolling down here, you'll see all of these cars, like Bill said, they have to have a car wash. They have to be checked in. You have to have 35 pictures at least. You have to monitor. Is there a check engine light, an oil change, tire pressure sensor? All of that stuff on this scale becomes tremendously taxing on any one person on the ground. So the way we've done it is we have 6 to 8 hands, or basically operators on the ground, and they all have their signified roles. So one guy one day is going to do all of the cleaning. He's going to get all the preparation done. Another person's going to make sure your car at the dealership, and maybe the insurance adjuster from the renter who's not answering anymore isn't responding to us immediately. Well, we're going to keep calling until they do. I mean, I have the background in insurance, but I never realized all the connections I was missing out on, essentially, till I started working for Turo, trying to track down insurance claims. And another cool thing about insurance claims with us, and the way our business model works, is a lot of the times, and this is kind of why Bill created, I think, your insurance deductible plan, you can raise your risk, and eventually your insurance deductible on Turo becomes $2,500. Well, by raising your risk, obviously you make more money, but all of a sudden, maybe you bit off more than you could chew, and something does happen to your vehicle, and now you have to spend $2,500. Well, with us, we compromise not actually charging a full $2,500. We will cover $1,500 of your deductible for you on your behalf. simply because you're not keeping all of the money, right? So if your car's on the 90% plan right now and you get in a wreck with us, the difference would be you keep 70% of the money or 65, and your deductible is only $1,000 out of your pocket. And if you're an enterprise account with us, which is 5 to 10 cars or more, then we actually will pay for the deductible up front, and then we'll pull that money back from the revenue. The goal of a passive income model, regardless if it's a Dodge Charger or if it's an older transit wagon or it's a brand new car, is to put you in a position to where your cash flow is the number one important thing. If you're covering your car payment, good, that's fantastic. But if you're covering your car payment, putting your positive equity or cash flow, positive cash flow back into your vehicle, we can actually help you scale from 1 car to 2 car, 3 car to 5. And so we try and help you from a financial backing, even in worst case scenarios, get over that hurdle. And something like DFW, where I have hailstorms all the time, it happens. I've seen cars go out, 5, 10 cars, big fleets get demolished just from hail, right? It does happen. So back to how we actually keep the ship running and sailing smooth. All of the guys on the ground are doing the busy work, the recalls, all that fun stuff. And then I'm going to click on our messages here. We've completely automated car sync. And this, I'm not going to click on any of the blue here. As you can see, we have a lot of live conversations pretty much going on all the time, right? With hundreds of cars. So then one of our at home or in-house customer service reps, because nothing against Turo, we do love Turo, but we've all probably had a poor quality experience, or our renters has, which has ultimately affected our reviews within our actual Turo rents. So we have a whole on-staff customer service team that will say, hey, here's your automatic to-do list that you have to do. This is what's required of you. If you do all of this, your check-in should be smooth as butter. Whether it's Turo Go compatible or not, your vehicle will have somebody hand you the keys. If we can't have somebody hand you the keys, we do sometimes do the lockbox. It has happened before, and it's something we lean on. You know, we're by no means super special, especially with that amount of volume. But as you guys know, you don't necessarily want to take out that family-friendly feel with those reviews. So we try as much as possible to hand keys off. So what happens in that scenario? They go through this, and then this is us encouraging them to book privately to be able to get our investors, yourself, eventually to reuse us and repeat using us directly through our website. And that'll encourage them to rent privately and give you guys that 5% more commission, of course. But we stay where the demand is. So we have our own little check-in, check-out. It's a little bit smoother. And what it does is it keeps this level of consistency across the board. We then remove your toll tags and we update everything entirely on your vehicle every single trip. And we've created a dashboard, and we pull all of that data directly from CarSync, not Turo, because I'm sure you guys know that Turo has pretty tight keepings and tight security on their data. Right. So we pull it all from CarSync, and then after we pull it from CarSync, you'll see what a dashboard looks like here. So this is just a client of mine. His name is Matt Jones. He actually came from the Car Share Academy. So this is something you guys could download on your phone. And it's not necessarily pretty right now, right? But this is what we try to have our investors look at every single day, and over time it updates. So you'll see here, very interestingly enough, currently he gave us cars about December 31st, and he started with 5 or 6. He started to make a little bit more money off of his cars. He's got nice cars here though, guys, right? And I'll talk over some of the best producing return on investment vehicles, and he kind of trusted me. And then he immediately took a full nosedive. So now he has 13 active cars. And what you'll see here is within those in the last 45 days, his keeping is $16,477. We only charge 2 fees at Guided by Aura. One is going to be a monthly fee, and it's $9.99 if you're on the enterprise. It's $29.99 if you're on the regular standard plan, so you have under 5 cars. And we've removed that for anybody coming from the Car Share Academy. So if you come to our website, and I'll follow up with everybody here, if you decide to maybe entertain a true demonstration one-on-one with myself, just make sure that you mention that Will Huffine sent you, and we'll be sure to waive those fees. So what are the other fees? Well, the other fees are going to be your parking expenses. So for the first month, we don't really charge those. So you can see this is through his entire 45 days. So you're going to see some parking fees on some cars. And basically, when we're only keeping 20 or 25%. Oh, Aldo, I see you have a hand up. Go ahead, hit me.
Hey, Colton, how's it going? Just a quick question here. Can you hear me?
Please, yes.
Yeah, so I started a conversation with one of our representatives about like a couple weeks ago, and I was about, to submit the papers. So am I like allowed to still have this kind of deal with the Car Share Academy or not? I didn't send
what,
the papers
Aldo?
yet.
I trust you enough. We'll waive those fees for you. Waive the monthly fee for you. That absolutely no problem at all. So
Yep, thank you.
I would assume you're talking to Sterling, Nick. We have a
Yes,
couple of sales reps.
Sterling,
Okay, great.
yeah.
Sterling, great. He's one of our newer reps. So good to know he's doing his job properly. But make sure to send an email with me or just remind him, say, hey, I talked to Colton. I'll be sure to waive your fees, which it doesn't sound like a lot, guys, but $30 a month over the course of 12 months is $360. Depending on your car payment, that might cover half of it. It might cover the entire thing. And it's those little things over time with a co-host that, may not be able to track that data perfectly for you. And so you may lose over the course of the longevity of having the vehicle $4,000 or $5,000. Are they doing all the reimbursements? And if they are they making sure to draft it up in a way to where your 1099 actually has a timestamp process? So this is how it works for us. His take home of the $16,470 or $477 is $13,655, right? And all that is the parking expense, because we have a secured lot. We have people that are, especially with Park and Fly, when we move there on a national scale, it costs us money. And at 25%, we simply are just not profitable. And for perspective, it takes us about 200 cars in each marketplace to truly see a profit to pay the type of labor that you want. We pay all of our guys salary, health insurance instead of, and nothing, against how maybe one person runs their operation, but when you're managing this many vehicles, if you don't get the quality labor that you need or somebody that's managed cars properly before, things like this slip. So what you'll see here is a few discrepancies, right? So you'll see this month, it shows he's made $5,000. Well, CarSync pulls data from Turo, and that creates a delay. And then we pull that data from CarSync, which actually creates another delay. So if you add in seasonality here, you'd think, man, 14 cars, $13,000. I don't know, it doesn't sound great. What I did was I pulled up his actual count on Turo, and I copy and pasted before this webinar all of his vehicles on our page. Okay. So he started here in January. We had a minor dip in February, which is just the February blues. And it's something that I love to show you guys because I think everybody knows market wide, February is a slower month. It's just part of it, right? And then all of a sudden, I mean, look at this. He's already almost not doubled, but he's essentially, if you were to add this up, his dashboard's probably closer to about 11,500. And I know him because I have these conversations. His overall goal is to make about $13,000 a month to cover his monthly. So then going into April, which is 2.5 weeks away, it has 5 weekends in April and 20 full business days. The first starts on a Saturday. The 31st ends on a Sunday. He may very well have his first $35,000 month because he has a couple Corvettes in there. He has an Escalade. His cars are in a very, very hot, blossoming market, Austin, Texas, which we make up for about 45, maybe almost at this point, 50% of the entire market there of active cars that you can actually rent instantly. So for instant booking. So all of a sudden he starts doubling his actual equity on the passive income model. And if you were to come in here, sorry, it looks a little funky, but what you'll see, I got to do this. There we go. You can see this is just one of his vehicles. This looks like it's an Escalade, right? Of his. We have the check-in auto meter completely updated automatically. We have every single bit of the reservation. We have pictures of the actual driver's license of all these renters because it's screenshotted for our protection if they've stolen your car. Now, just for privacy and respect of these renters, I'm sure none of you guys would want your driver's license picture publicly blasted right here, but we create all of our reservations and we have IDs for them and timestamps, just so that at the end of every single month, and really we do it come tax season for you guys, we get a little bit more granular. You won't see this part on your dashboard. You could always request it, but we have our in-house accounting team come in and blast you guys off the entire list of everything and shoot you over the 1099. And we can send it to your tax or your accountant and really capitalize on every dollar used, right? So looking forward, you can kind of see from a rate of growth projection, I was just like you guys in the sense 2022, where we started in 2021, then going into 2022, and forgive me for a second, Turo always takes a long time to load, I think, because our vehicles, and we have so many employees playing in this. But it's very, very interesting to see the types of vehicles and maneuvering them in the right ways. And when you put them in the right locations, for example, I always teach my sales reps, I'm sure Sterling maybe have told you, Aldo, how can you rent to a family of 7 in a 5-seater? You can't, just so you're handicapping yourself, right? And I have full confidence trying to give everybody the ability to get all those cars, whether you're with us or not, because what's good for the Toro community is ultimately good for us. Plus, if you're not in the right marketplace, ultimately that car is going to probably come with a higher car payment. So we'll put it in a marketplace, which is probably going to be much more advantageous for you financially. So what we did was we had our, 10, 15 Teslas, scaled it up. We had then me come in about May, give or take, start seeing if we could add vehicles as a co-hosting platform. And we blossomed really, really well, right? Couple dips here. We had a big client leave. This is something, full transparency, which is kind of the motto in our company. I had a guy, really, really good guy. He had a co-host out in San Francisco who had no experience at all. He got him to buy 35 vehicles, and this was a big tax advantage for him. The co-host starts running around with his head cut off. You name it, everything went wrong with the cars, fender benders, all the parallel parking in San Francisco. These renters are just destroying them. And by marketplace, you will see there is higher theft. For example, in Atlanta, we're about to go to, which is why we're so adamant about the parking, with Park and Fly there. You'll see this data that can skew one person's experience on Toro completely different than another's. And we try and group it up in a way where everybody gets the same. But ultimately, this dip in revenue was simply because, he had a $1,200 car payment on, I think, a Toyota Corolla. And at the time, this was last year, it was a 2019. He just went all in and he financed to the point where he called me, he said, Colton, I'm financially drowning. And so I moved all exotic cars to Las Vegas, and he still has about 8 cars with us. But, unfortunately, he's probably going to get to the point where maybe bankruptcy might happen. And I tell you guys that simply because never bite off more than you can chew. If you've seen me on the Facebook forums before, I always tell people, if I see somebody go, I got 1 car and I got 10 grand, I want to buy a new car, I say, put 5 grand in your pocket for a rainy day, and we'll put 5 grand towards a bigger vehicle. And then we're going to reduce the price on the first vehicle you have. We're going to increase its utilization, and it's going to be a safe net to help pay for your new car payment. Now you're equity positive in 2 cars. Never trade in a car unless you're getting a really, really good deal. Use it as cash flow, because in this used car market, everybody knows it's probably going to stay up in price for a severe amount of time. And then fast forward, we did about 1.3 million last year, really, really good, strong numbers. And this year going into it, we're already at 663,000 with another 280 in the pipeline. But with instant bookings, interestingly enough, April looks good. I guarantee you probably going to April about 200,000, right? And I say that because if you divide it amongst the active cars we have, the data supports the big vehicles. The data shows, you've got this Yukon, it's 2 years old, it's made 6,800. I don't know that investor off the top of my head or what vehicle that is, but 6,800 times 65%, that vehicle has made that investor $4,400 this year. Odds are that's probably 4 to 6 months of his car payment on that car, depending, right? I don't know his finances. So we get 3 or 4 more months like that, and he's paid off almost 25% of his vehicle doing nothing, right? And that's kind of the goal in every way, shape, or form, regardless if you're a regular investor with 1 car, a new investor, or simply put, somebody that's just tired of doing what they're doing and they want their time back. That's our goal, to give people their time back in a way where the cars are safe, but you're not missing any dollars, right? So questions, who's got something for me?
Before we jump into questions, Colton, great job. Everybody in the chat box, while Colton was talking, I dropped a link. If anybody here on the webinar is interested in just starting a conversation with Colton and the folks at Aura, I put the form in the chat box. Just click on that link, complete that form. As soon as you hit submit, it's going to send a copy to me to make sure that we get you qualified for that waiver of the monthly fees. And it's going to send a copy to Colton and his team so that they can pick up the phone and begin that conversation with you. So look for that link in the chat box. And that's all I've got. So yeah, let's throw some questions out. And I think with 21 people in the room, to avoid any kind of chaos or people talking over each other, just raise your hand if you have a question, and we'll call on you. Okay, Aldo, go ahead.
Yeah. So again, I was talking with Sterling about. I'm from Michigan, like you,
Sure.
William. Real close
Mhm.
from you. I'm from Rochester.
I was
So
born in
it's,
Rochester Hills, actually.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in
Oh, really?
Rochester Hills.
Yeah, me
Funny,
too.
funny.
Yeah. So that's good. So are you guys planning to open, something, in our neighborhood here?
That's a great question, actually. So the way we won't do it is we find saturation based on data that Bill has helped us scrape. Do I think we'll be in Michigan eventually? Yeah. Is it one of our strongest markets? Not necessarily from what we've seen. So the next one is going to be Seattle and Atlanta, and then probably, hopefully, one of the North Carolinas in the future. I think eventually we will, but we have to find a quality host. Anytime we open up a market, we either partner with somebody that has over 2,500 trips. So maybe only Bill, who's trying to get out of the hosting cars entirely, is our guy in Michigan, or we go in there when we see fit. And it's kind of requires a different type of vehicle. Do you have all-wheel drive vehicles? What's the demand there? Where's the best airport location and parking? So I don't want to tell you yes immediately, but I do see us being there, just not anytime in the near future. Our goal is to be one city, major marketplace, and cater to every one state. But depending on your fleet, I would run the numbers and I'd show you, best bang for your buck in the marketplaces that we're in.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if I have a kind of second question here. I'm not sure if there's any other person, or I can shoot mine.
Hit me out. Go ahead.
Yeah. So since we don't have anything close to where I live here, and I do very often trips to Atlanta, and Stanley told me that you guys are going to open a lot there by beginning of April, but he replied back to me, like a few days ago, that this was kind of postponed. So he was saying, like, maybe send my car to like Fort Lauderdale, and when in Atlanta is ready to go, move out to there. So it's just like, who pays for that moving? After like we have our cars, onboarding with you guys, and you like figure out that the place is not good for the vehicle, and you have to move around. Who pays for that moving?
Sure, it's a great question. So I think, just to reiterate, you're saying you want to be in Atlanta. Sterling said we're postponing Atlanta, and you want to know if you move it to Orlando in the interim, once we open up Atlanta, who would pay for it? Ultimately, it would be you that pays for it, simply because we're only making that 20, possibly 25%. We can't afford to do it. Or what we do is it's kind of based on seasonality, right? I had a big client named Jerkana. She was a huge host in Las Vegas. I mean, she had 70 some odd cars. She wanted to put some in San Francisco, then she wanted to put some in Austin. So we spaced them all out. And when we do open Atlanta, she wants a presence in there. What we would do is wait for her to ship some cars out, and then we would ship your car. And instead of you paying for shipping or flying back down to Orlando to go to Atlanta, we get this wholesale shipping rate, whether it's U-Ship, another really, really reliable source for shipping. I'm sure you guys have probably heard Fines has his own shipping company that he's partnered with. They'll give you a wholesale discount. So what will happen is, as opposed to spending $900 a car, you may only spend $250. So as long as you're comfortable with the flexibility of our company, and again, guys, it looks good on paper, but these cars do have problems, and those problems occur to our company. So we can't necessarily stretch our funds so much for logistics and our resources so much for logistics. So I could make it happen. I would just only be able to make it happen in a time when it works out perfectly. So it's the cheapest, financial possible or financially for you as possible. Great question, though.
Great question. So let's go ahead and see if anybody else in the room, anybody else want to raise your hand and ask a question?
Yeah. So, hey, Colton, what's up?
Mike.
Yeah. So when you're doing this, when you're talking about 65%, are we talking about, I'm assuming then all of the cars that you guys are putting on the platform are on the 90% insurance plan?
Great question. Yes, sir. So this is how it really works. And if you guys go to guidedbyaurora.com, you'll see this. So this is our little car calculator here. So we take all of the vehicles and we do indeed put them on the 90% plan. And that's part of the reason why, hey, cars on the 90% plan, the deductible is $2,500 for you all, but you're not keeping, and your risk isn't 90% of the money. So, and your risk technically isn't even 90% of the business or the risk that you're taking on. And because we incur that, we actually cover that $1,500 and your car is on the 90% plan, but we give you, if you have 1 to 4 cars, we give you that 65%, right?
65% of the 90%, correct?
No, actually, that's what's really cool about us. So if a car, this is how most co-hosts do it. If a car goes out for 1 day at $100, right?
Right.
I don't know if this will go all the way down to 1. It only does 12 because our cars average 18 days out of the month. But if a car goes out for 1 day at $100, most hosts go, okay, there's $90 that comes to me. I'll give you 65% of that number. So you're only keeping $58.50. Well, we do it based off the gross of the daily trip. So if a car goes out for 1 day at $100, you're going to keep that $65. You keep it purely based off the gross. Right.
Okay. Well, yeah, then really, I mean, that's not what I was expecting you to answer, because essentially, you're only giving up then what, 25%.
That's right. Well, and then even so, coming over here to our enterprise plan right here, what you'll see is it says on our website, it starts with 10. Anybody coming from Huffine, 5 cars or more, essentially is going to get on that enterprise plan in an expedited fashion. So again, if a car goes out for $100 for 1 day, you're truly keeping that $70, right? Now, when it comes to trip delivery fees and all of those little things that, if it's at $250 because your car comes completely wasted, we do keep that. And the reason we keep that is it's just more resources on the ground to send a car to the airport, do the airport delivery fee, send an Uber back. And our ideal business plan with Park and Fly in the future is to be able to incorporate those delivery fees effortlessly, right? If we do charge them at all, or somebody just comes, they grab their bags from Terminal A, they take the Park and Fly shuttle, it goes directly to Park and Fly, your car's there with covered parking, so it's beautifully protected, right? And then they're on their merry way after a couple of pictures, and one of our customer service reps talks to them. So it's pretty good, right? However, it doesn't work every single time like that. So if we do have to charge a delivery fee, then we do keep that simply because it's just part of the razor thin margins that we kind of stand on.
Okay, so I tell you what I want the daily rate to be. And then do you pick the pricing then, I'm assuming, on your end? So if there's like a last minute booking or something, either way, the price that I tell you is the 65% of what I'm going to get for any trip.
That's right. So we try to recommend people that don't, if you have a car that's only averaging $30 a day, which we do take them, for example, I mean, these sparks, let me show you. This is actually ridiculous data here. You go in, you give me a spark.
Yeah.
I mean, these things average $35 to $40. This is a 2018 Chevy Spark. You can probably find this car in Texas, where I live, anywhere from $82,000 to $12,000, right? It'll average about 20 days out of the month. So if we go to our little handy dandy car calculator here, see if we can get that low. 35, 20 days out of the month. If you coincidentally had 10 of them, they'd make you $4,000. And your car payments on those cars are about $90 to $110 if you finance them over 84 months. Right. So we have these little niche types of vehicles, but I always recommend doing bigger vehicles because for 10 vehicles, $80,000 that you're financing $4,000 a month isn't that appetizing. Right. So I would say give me cars or let me pick the vehicles that have a high daily price point. So what you take home provides you significant cash flow. And it's not that we won't take these. It's just ultimately you have to look at two things. One, what you're in it for, right? Most people don't have an exit strategy. If you to talk to people on tour, a lot of the times they really won't tell you what they're thinking about doing with their cars 2 years from now. Well, I know if you give me a big car, odds are the exit strategy on that vehicle, I'm going to be able to pay it off faster, especially on multiple, especially when we cater to big wedding venues and registered nurses on the private end. I mean, I could name a bunch of marketing techniques that we have to get a higher utilization on those types of vehicles, right? But on your exit strategy, would you rather have 8 cars or 10 cars that are really, really cheap like this, right? And probably 2 years from now, you're only going to get 40 grand from, or finance a $65,000 car that 2 years from now, you still might get 40 or 50 grand from, but you're going to pay it off much faster. The odds of it probably being in a wreck and completely losing compared to, if you are getting a wreck with a Chevy Spark, you're going to probably win. You get in a wreck with a Tahoe, that Tahoe is going to probably result in a fender bender. And I and my team on the ground are going to be able to put that Tahoe right back on the road in 10 to 15 business days tops. Right. So there's little things like that.
Yeah. So just to clarify here, my question is it a set? Are you guys pricing the vehicles and am I telling you what I want the vehicle priced at? I'm assuming you guys are pricing it on a daily basis. And
Go ahead. Sorry.
So just for example, okay, I got a 2020 Expedition XLT, loaded top end XLT, right? Right now I get $119 a day plus normally I'm always delivering that one to an airport. Okay.
Right.
So, but maybe in another market, I know that I could get more for that vehicle. Okay.
Sure.
So do you guys price the vehicle and then I get 90% or 65% of what you're pricing it at? Or do I get 65% of the price that I tell you that I want? So if I say, hey, listen, 119, I want to get 119 a day.
Right. Good question. So we price it completely. Now, if you're not satisfied with that price, like for example, here is a Ford Expedition in Las Vegas. You're going to see it's at $89.99, working its way to $119. And it probably looks like right here for this month of March, you're averaging, give or take the 20 days, maybe even 21 if we get a farther booking out here, one of these 2 or 3 day windows. You 100% keep 65% of these daily trip rates, whatever it is. So weekends, we're going to increase the price. And then Monday through Thursday, we decrease the price to increase that demand.
Okay.
But not the price that you try. Now, don't get me wrong. If you put it in Austin, South by Southwest, you'd be much more happy because we could get $210 a day for it when it's super busy, but it's not all the time, right? But what we don't want for you is we rather price your car at $85 a day and it hit the 20 days out of the month and you're still covering your overhead there.
Right.
And while it may not look good for you because you keep 65% or 70%, depending on how many cars you have, of that $85 price point, it's much better than raising it to 150 and it only runs out 10 days. So we have 2 price analysis tools, guys, that pretty much live in car sync and they're constantly just playing with the pricing. But that's a great question. We do ultimately control it until you say, hey, this price is way too low. Bump this up.
Okay.
All right. So, hey, okay. Are you still wanting to go on that same topic, Mike? Because I do want to try to get some other folks' questions in here. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, one quick question. Okay. So then you you price it there in terms of mileage, are you doing them all at 200, or if it's an exclusive one, I'm assuming you're doing it at 100 miles a day?
Yeah, good question. So it's all at 200. We track it. Obviously, we get charged that back, but because you own the asset, we will reimburse a portion of that back to you, that 65% for overages. But for example, I have a BMW i8. That i8, it's only going to be $100 or 100 miles a day, just because I don't want anybody taking the i8 all the way down to, San Antonio and back and putting a quick 800 miles on it. Right.
Right.
But great question.
All right, so let's go ahead and Ed dropped a question in the chat box in the Q&A. So if I'm understanding correctly, what we make is only the daily rate percentage and Aura keeps everything else. And I assume by everything else, you mean like delivery fees or things like that. So Ed, feel free to come on mic and clarify if you need to.
Sure. Yep. Ed hit me.
Yeah, so basically that was my question. So if you're doing delivery, I mean, you're obviously making the money for delivering it. It's your time, it's your effort, things like that. I'm assuming, with the percentage you're taking, you're covering all costs, assuming, cleaning fees, things like that. If you've got, memberships to car washes or whatever. But everything else that you would charge as far as extras go only goes to you guys. Unless I'm assuming, and what I'm getting to is overages on mileage.
Correct. You nailed it on the head. That's exactly right. So you look at the daily price point, which is why you'll see here in the example of his 13 vehicles. As you guys know, you're going to see some reimbursements here. Some of this is going to allocate towards maybe a smoking fee or whatever that may be. Anything that requires our guys on the ground to go out of their way, out of their normal day-to-day. Car washes, all that stuff's their normal day-to-day, picking up a car from the dealership. But anything where you actually have to charge a fee, hop on the phone with Turo, get it approved, and it requires our labor to come in and do all the things that would require you time. So we're making this truly passive. We keep that money as part of actually trying to sustain a business model for us to stay afloat, right? But to answer your question, yes, minus the mileage. And because we do the mileage simply for the fact that it doesn't really happen much. The renters, the way we vet them, they always don't go crazy. Don't get me wrong. We've had cars in Texas end up in the Northeast before, and we charge them. That's depreciation on your asset. We're not trying to steal money from any one investor. And we understand that's money out of your pocket on your exit strategy. So then you're going to get that money back. But certain things in terms of anything to actually keep your vehicle running that exhausted some of our labor, we keep that to just help, keep the company running afloat.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, especially on things like delivery fees where you're paying people to make the deliveries. You're relying on Ubers and things like that. So that makes sense. All right. Anybody else want to raise your hand and ask a question? We're already over our hour here, and I do want us to spend a few minutes talking with Mike about vehicle purchasing strategies. But I want to make sure that we've answered everything on the fleet management side that we need to answer tonight. So let's do one last call for questions. Aldo, go ahead.
You could kind of give a clue, but when I come to this, I didn't know Turo, I didn't know any of this car sharing. I just get to know like 6 months ago, 4 months ago. I was going to ship a lot of my cars to, oh man, I forgot the company, in Chicago. They have a lot of places, and they just shut down operation. They just have now in Chicago and I don't know the other place, Denver, I think. But I'm gapping the name of the company. They kind of do like you, and they grab the cars from investors and they run, but they have like a daily rate that's like a cap. Depends on the car, and they have a lot of place, but they just suddenly almost went out of the business, right? So what do you guys
Oh, I
doing
think
on?
you could be referencing a veil, possibly.
Yes, a veil.
Veil,
Yeah,
yeah.
man, I was gapping. Yeah.
It's funny in terms of keeping all of the smoking fees, doing all of that stuff, and not guaranteeing any money. A veil guaranteed money to investors, and that's just a terrible business model. It 100% is, because don't get me wrong, if that Lamborghini and Mr. Rumple's background was real and he gave it to me, I could vet that client. He could be the greatest guy in the world. I'm from Dallas. It could be Tony Romo. I trust him. I love him. Who knows? Maybe he gets T-boned. Now I have to guarantee Mike $1,500 in revenue. Avail's going to go out of pocket. So to kind of answer your question here, Aldo, one of the things we will never do is guarantee any sort of revenue. But what we do is, and this is kind of back to the conversation with me and Mike, I'd rather have your car at $90 a day, knowing it's going to hit 20, 21, 22 plus days out of the month, so that you have a sense of comfort in the revenue coming in, as compared to, let's put the Ford Expedition at 155 and cross our fingers it goes out for 8 days. I think the big problem in this industry is people get so emotionally attached to their cars, and it's always the person with one or two cars that is really, really upside down on their car payments. I can't tell you how many times I've told people, no, we're not willing to take your vehicle, simply because you can tell they need the money more than they need the investment. And by no means are we trying to create a sense of a security blanket for people. We're trying to create an investment for people and help educate them on the tax plays of this investment, how to get your bonus depreciation through Section 179, and then work your way to where 2 years from now, you have 10 vehicles, all valued between $20,000 and $55,000, and you walk away with $250,000 in your pocket, right? So business like Avail, they actually did the opposite. It was a hook sink, and hey, give me your car, I'm going to guarantee you some money. And all of a sudden, they went bankrupt really, really, really quick. So our business model is actually quite the opposite. So our intention is to never go anywhere. We want to be the largest co-host on Turo, and that's our goal. And I genuinely think we probably hit it no later than August. So.
All right. Thank you, Colton. Appreciate that. And so I think this would be a good spot for us to go ahead and transition out of respect for everybody's time. Colton, amazing job. Thank you so much. Will you go ahead and stop the screen share on your side so I can take it back over?
Absolutely.
All right. Very good. So thank you so much. That was, I even learned some things. I thought I knew everything that you guys were doing, but I learned some things there. I didn't realize you were doing it off the gross and not the net, man. That's pretty amazing. So
love to see it.
Yeah. Good stuff. So thank you, Colton. I want to introduce you to Mike Rumpel from Ohio, just down the road from me a bit. Mike has a company called Your Car Buying Advocate, and Mike loves to help people make the best decisions when they're buying vehicles. If you don't buy your vehicles right, this co-hosting thing's never going to work for you. Colton is never going to be able to make you any money if you've got an $1,100 payment on a Toyota Corolla. So that's the kind of things that we really want to avoid. And I've asked Mike to take a few minutes this evening and just wrap up the conversation by sharing with us his best practices on purchasing vehicles to make sure that you are positioned to either make money by hosting the vehicle yourself or make money by handing it off to Colton and his team to manage. So, Mr. Rumpel, thank you for being here. Thank you for your expertise, and the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me, William. So there's a few things what I always tell people. First off, I am not a car dealer. I want to make sure that I'm being very clear there. I don't own any cars. What we do at Your Car Buying Advocate is we are consultants. We're expert car buyers that know how to get and how to research and how to get good deals on cars. Okay. And so what I want to go over with you today is just a couple of best practices. And I don't want to take up much of your time, but I want to first say the first thing, there's three things that I always tell people in order to get the best deal. Number one is when car dealerships compete, or any type of marketplace, when there's competition and you make people compete to earn your business, you're going to win. So I always say when car dealerships compete, you win. The second thing is that you should never be negotiating price at the dealership. Okay. And there's a reason for that. When you're going to buy a car, okay, think of it as if you were playing a football game. Do you want to play that game on your home field, or do you want to play at their field, right? So you got to think of the whole car buying game, the whole car buying thing as a game, right? And so what does that mean? Well, first off, if you're buying a used car, my advice, and I don't know if there's any dealerships in here, and I'm sorry if there is any used car dealers in here, but my advice whenever I buy used cars, how do you get the best deal on a used car? Okay, well, you buy it from a private party. So whenever I'm buying whenever I'm buying a used car, especially in today's market, if you're looking at a used car that's only a couple of years old, in most markets, people think, oh, well, I'm going to save the depreciation and I'm going to buy a 2021 that has 20,000 miles. Okay. What you don't realize is, especially in today's market, a couple of year old car with low miles, you can likely get a brand new car for a similar price. And not only that, what comes with a brand new car is a lower interest rate and lower financing rate. So if you're looking at a used car that's just a couple of years old, my advice would be, before pulling the trigger on a used one, take a look at what a brand new one would cost for the same thing, and contact multiple different dealerships and have them compete for your business. But if you're looking for a used car, an economy car, my advice is to go on to Facebook Marketplace, offer up, and be very patient to find the right deal. So if you can buy a car from a private party and give them 500 more than what they could get if they were to trade it in, right? And so they get a little bit more for the trade in, you get it for a little bit less than what you could buy it from a dealership. Everybody wins in that situation. So my advice for an older economy car would be to try to focus on being on the marketplace, on Facebook, being on, offer up, and really be patient to make sure that you're not paying retail for the car. The next thing is, when you're negotiating the deal for the car, you have to negotiate the deal in pieces. Okay, so what I mean by that is, you don't go into the dealership and say, okay, I want that car, here's my trade-in, and I want to finance all of it and not put any money down. Okay, what you do is, there's three parts of a car deal. There's the sale price, the out the door price that you negotiate first. How much for the car that you're trying to buy, who's willing to sell that car for the lowest price? That's the first thing that you negotiate. And you negotiate that separately from what they're willing to give you for any type of trade-in that you have, right? So once you come to and you find who's going to give you the best deal for the new car, then you have to contact multiple different places and get the actual out the door number, because you cannot find that online. When you're going online, you've got to talk to them. They got to send you a proposal. They got to send you a buyer's order, so you know exactly how much you're going to have to pay for that new car, right? That's the first part of the deal. Second part of the deal is, who's going to give you the most money for your trade-in, right? Can you get some more money if you post the car on Facebook Marketplace? Can you make out some money there and sell the car private party? Maybe the car that you're buying the new car at, they're not even going to sell your car. They're going to wholesale it to another dealership. So instead, can you find that dealer that is actually going to sell your car, right? And they're going to give you a little bit more money than what the dealership that's not going to sell your car for, because they're just going to buy it from the dealer after you and be done with it. So you negotiate the deal in pieces. And then finally, it's the financing part of it. Okay. You do not take the dealership's word for what the payment is going, like, they make a lot of money in the finance office. Okay. When you go back and you talk to the guy in the finance office, you notice how he's got a really nice watch on. He's really slick. He's normally a very good salesperson. He's one of the highest paid employees at the dealership. So what that means is, they make money off the financing. So if you can get approved for a rate of, say, in today's market, high fives, low sixes for 72 months is actually pretty good. But that part of the deal needs to be negotiated separately, and you have to make them compete for your business on the financing end by getting pre-approved somewhere else. Okay. Knowing what a good interest rate is, Okay. And it might not even be through the bank that you bank with currently. Okay. But you should be checking out local credit unions, checking out national credit unions, seeing what the rate is online. And you don't even have to apply for it. Okay. Just have it pulled up. And I could show you some text messages that I have with the finance manager. They come back at a rate of, 7-8%. Okay. And then I say, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to bring my own financing. I'm able to get approved. Here's a link to, USAA where they're given 6%. And wouldn't you know it? Oh, well, we can match that deal. Okay. Because they want your finance. They want the financing too. Right. But if you just go in and you negotiate everything together and you focus on payment, and that's the only thing that you're worried about, there's very easy ways for them to manipulate the numbers in order to have you pay more than what you actually should. So my advice is, number one, if you're looking at a car in today's market, I don't know what it's going to be 6 months to a year from now. Market is always changing. Okay. But if you're looking for a car that's a couple of years old, a late model used car, okay, it would be very smart of you to look into what that exact same car costs today, because even if it only costs $2,000 or $3,000 more, okay, you're going to get a better interest rate. And then you have that 20 to 30,000 miles to run it for longer on Turo. Okay. So look into if you're looking at, late model used cars, make sure that you're reaching out to dealerships and checking to make sure that you can't get a new car for a better deal. And then never negotiate at the dealership. Call them over the phone. They're not going to want, there's a reason why they don't want, when you call them sometimes, the first thing they say to you is, when can you come in? Okay. And some of them they won't even tell you what the numbers are. Okay. Sometimes you are in control as the buyer. Okay. You are the one with all the negotiating power inside of this. Okay. Because you're the one with the money. You hold all the power. They have to do the deal the way you want to do it. And if they refuse to do it over the phone and be transparent and honest, move on, because they don't have the best deal anyway. Okay. So you negotiate over the phone, you negotiate in pieces, and you make them compete on each and every part of the deal. Okay. And don't focus on payment, and don't even talk about payment ever at the dealership. Everything should be, well, of course you need to go and look at the car and maybe test drive the car, especially if it's a used car or something. Okay. But while you're there, it's always, you know what? I'm not even sure if I want this car. Right. You know what? I'm just here to look at it, check it out. Then if you want the car, you go home and you call the guy back in an hour and say, hey, I've got it narrowed down between your car and this other mystery car. Okay. Hey, well, look at this one. They're selling it for this price. You guys are at this price. And then you make them compete. That's the only way you get a good deal, is by making the dealerships compete. In today's market, they're not going to come off of their price unless you make them. So I'm not sure who IS is, but she says being a woman is very difficult to negotiate with salespeople. I have to be honest with you. Honestly, I think women have an advantage. I have an advocate. Her name's Monique. If you go onto our website, okay. When I talk to car salesmen, sometimes because I'm like that alpha man and I'm very aggressive, okay, sometimes it's harder for me to get a good deal. Okay. It's just, you just have to have the confidence to know what you're doing and make them. Okay. And when I say negotiate, okay, there's no special things that we say at Your Car Buying Advocate. Okay. Like, we don't have any special words that we know how to negotiate better than everybody else. What we know how to do is we know how to gather the information that everybody needs to know what is a good deal. And if you can gather that information, okay, you should be able to look at that information and identify what is a good deal and what is not a good deal. So, for example, you're looking, let's just use a Chevy Equinox, for example, right? If you're looking at a Chevy Equinox and you call 5 different dealerships that have the exact Equinox that you want to buy, they're all the same exact car, and you call 5 different dealerships and you tell them, hey, I'm interested in your Equinox. I'm buying an Equinox. I want to see a buyer's order on that Equinox to see what the out the door price is. Okay. You're going to see a difference between one dealership and the next. Okay. So it's not, and so what we do is we gather all that information back. If you call 4 or 5 different dealerships, you're going to see a huge difference. One of them is going to be way lower. Well, then we engage with the dealership that's giving us the best price. It's not that, you know, how much they come off of the price does not make a good deal. That's not what makes a good deal. What makes a good deal is who's willing to sell the car that you want to buy for the best price. And if you call 4 or 5 different dealerships and you make them compete for your business, you can make a confident car buying decision. And it makes no difference of what words you say to the dealership or how you get them to come off their price. You just got to find the dealership that's willing to sell the vehicle at the best price. And depending upon the market that you're in, that might mean that you might have to call outside of your market. Okay. For example, if you look in Michigan, okay, I buy a lot of cars out of Michigan, especially if you're in Chicago, because look at the price of cars in Michigan compared to the price of cars in Chicago. Okay. So you don't have to buy from the local dealership. Okay. You need to make sure that you're going outside of the market maybe. And I'm not talking about all the way across the country because there's going to be other costs there too. But sometimes we do buy, you know, in faraway cities and get the vehicle shipped. Sometimes it makes sense, but you're never going to get a good deal just by calling a dealership and trying to negotiate them down on price. The only way you're going to get them to come down on price is if you show them a deal that you have right now. I'm about to take this deal from this other dealership. Unless you match their deal or beat their deal, I'm going to buy this other one. What do you want to do? That is the key to negotiating any deal. And that's the same thing, you know, online for a used car, right? You pull up all the different cars that you want to buy, that you're interested in buying. And the way you negotiate with the dealership or the private party is you say, hey, listen, I like your car. I've seen your car. I want to buy your car, but look at this other car. I'm considering this one as well. It's priced $1,000 less than what you're trying to sell yours for. I'm going to go buy that one tomorrow unless you match their price. So that is the key to negotiating. It's not saying something special or anything like that. It's more about knowing what the market is and actually being able to identify which deal is the best deal and gathering the information and knowing what the best deal is. So.
All right. Great, Mike. Thank you so much. That was very helpful information. And I know car buying is one of the most stressful things for everybody. So Mike, what is your website address for everybody to write down?
It's www.yourcarbuyingadvocate.com. I'm also this year, I have a YouTube page, same name, Your Car Buying Advocate. When I started the company, I really wanted to teach people how to be an expert car buyer. For the people that didn't have the time or didn't want to do it on their own, they could hire me to do it. Haven't had much time to do the content of teaching people. But this year now, I'm really going to be focusing on it and putting out tips and showing people exactly step by step. I'm going to be recording phone calls with dealerships, all types of good content on there because nobody wants to leave a dealership thinking, I have no idea if I got ripped off or if I got a good deal. And it's very easy not to have that feeling if you know how to do it right.
Exactly. All right. So, folks, we are exactly 30 minutes over our time, but this was all very, very good information. Both of you guys, Colton and Mike, thank you so much for all of this. And everybody remember, in the chat box, I dropped in the link to complete the intake form to begin a conversation with Aura. Please make sure that you use that form for our tracking purposes. And I will be sending out an email to everybody who registered for the event tonight with a link to that form. I'll go ahead and drop in a link to Mike's website as well in that email. So if you need help buying a car, please reach out to Mike. And when you're ready to start sending vehicles over to Aura for that passive income, make sure you connect with Colton. So we are going to wrap it up. I got some packing to do before Colton and I head off to Atlanta tomorrow morning.
That's right. That's right.
It's going to be a good trip. If any of you folks here in the audience are in Atlanta, we're going to be meeting at the Yard House restaurant by the battery part, or I forget what it's called. But anyway, that's where we're going to be at 7:00 Eastern time, Saturday evening for a meetup. We've already got well over 20 people who've registered for the meetup, so it's going to be a great time. So thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic week. I am always here to help you. Message me through Facebook. Reach out to these guys. Let's all make some money.
That's right. Good to meet everybody.
Yep. Nice to meet you guys.
Good night, folks.
Good night.